Chapter 1. The only sound in the ruined watchtower was the rhythmic scraping of the bone knife as Seraphina Vane cleaned the meager meat she'd managed to forage. The air was frigid, the cold pressing down on her thin frame like the weight of the mountains themselves. 21 years old and still she hadn't shifted. In the Winterpaw pack, this made her less than the dogs. She was the ghost of a person, a burden tolerated only because she was quiet and performed menial, dirty tasks without complaint. "Stop dwelling, Sarah," she whispered to herself, her breath misting in the dim light. Dwelling didn't fill bellies or loosen chains. Her brother, Tarun, the only family she had left, was dying slowly in the Alpha's dungeons, imprisoned for a debt incurred defending her from a particularly brutal guard. His crime wasn't theft or treason. It was loyalty. Tarun, a gentle beta who had managed a weak shift, was the only one who had ever called her Sarah instead of Wolfshame. Now, because she couldn't shift, couldn't earn enough, couldn't fight, he was wasting away. The Alpha of the Winterpaw territories, Alpha Vane, no relation, simply the name of the region she served, had given her a deadline: 3 days or Tarun would be sold to the mines. She had no money, no connections, and no wolf. Her mind returned, as it always did, to the Obsidian Citadel. An imposing fortress built directly into the coldest spine of the mountain range, it was the seat of power for the entire northern territories, ruled by King Kian Valerius. The Obsidian King. A legend and a ghost. King Kian was famed for his glacial stillness. He hadn't smiled, shown fear, or displayed a single recognizable human emotion in a decade since his coronation. Whispers claimed his wolf died during the wars, leaving a hollow, unfeeling shell on the throne, a functional, rigid tyrant who ruled by logic, not heart. To Seraphina, the citadel felt like the edge of the world, and the king, its frozen core. She looked at her hands, clean, strong from work, but unmarked by the dense calluses of a wolf's transformation. She touched the single, worn moonstone amulet, her mother's last possession, hanging around her neck. It was smooth, cool, and offered no comfort, yet she never took it off. Seraphina wrapped the last piece of dried meat and went to the dungeon beneath the village common house. The air was foul, thick with sickness and despair. Tarun, pale and frail, managed a weak smile when he saw her. "Sarah, you didn't bring the guard extra work, did you?" Seraphina forced a brightness she didn't feel. "Of course not. I brought you this." She passed him the meat. "Listen to me, Tarun. I'm going to the Citadel." Tarun's eyes widened, the first flicker of genuine fear she'd seen in weeks. No, Sarah, you can't. They'll kill you for trespassing. The Obsidian King doesn't tolerate Omegas, let alone those who can't shift. He'll make an example of you." "I have no choice," Seraphina insisted, her voice raw. "Alpha Vane gave me the deadline. I have nothing left but to beg for a royal decree to pardon your debt. The king is supposed to be just, even if he is cold." "He is cold because he is empty," Tarun corrected, grabbing her hand. "If you go, he will take you. Maybe worse." "I'll be fine," she lied, pulling her hand away gently. "I'm a ghost, Tarun. They won't even see me." She knew what she was doing was suicide. She was trekking across enemy lands with no protection, to beg the most ruthless ruler in the territories. But the thought of Tarun being sold to the mines, enduring a life of slow, agonizing labor until death, was a fate worse than her own. She stood to leave, wrapping her simple, patched cloak tightly around her. Just as she reached the door, Alpha Vane appeared, his massive, shifting form filling the low archway. His eyes were cold, calculating. "Going somewhere, shame?" he sneered, using the slur that felt like a brand. "To the Citadel, Alpha," Seraphina said, dropping her gaze instantly. "To beg the king for mercy on my brother's debt." Vane laughed, a harsh, scraping sound. "Beg? Good. Go. Tell him nothing of your mother. Tell him nothing of the moonstone. And pray, little nothing, that he doesn't mistake you for a stray." Vane's words held an edge of specific malice, a warning that Seraphina couldn't decipher but instinctively feared. Why the warning about her long-dead mother? Why the amulet? She didn't know, but the command was absolute. "Yes, Alpha," she murmured, dropping into a deep submission bow. She walked out into the biting wind, turning her face toward the unforgiving mountain peak where the obsidian citadel stood, a silent black threat against the pale sky. She was a single fragile prayer walking toward a throne of ice. Chapter 2. The journey took 2 grueling days. Seraphina avoided the main roads, relying on instinct and the dense forest cover. Her feet were bleeding by the time she saw the citadel up close. It was less a building and more a mountain carved into a weapon. Black, sharp stone, reinforced with iron and eternally shrouded in cold mist. She reached the massive iron gates at dusk. The Alpha guards were monstrous, shifting at the slightest provocation, their eyes flat and menacing. Her lack of a wolf scent, the neutral, almost null scent of an unshifted human, seemed to confuse and irritate them. "State your purpose, servant," one massive guard snarled, clearly recognizing the patchwork quality of her clothing. "I am Seraphina Vane. I seek the king's mercy for a debt incurred in the Winterpaw territory," she whispered, offering the only currency she had left, absolute, fearful submission. To her surprise, they didn't kill her. They saw the desperation in her eyes and the obvious futility of her request. They saw something pitiable, something weak. It was a kind of protection. "Wait here," the guard commanded, and she was ushered into a stone waiting room colder than the outside air. Hours passed. Seraphina sat motionless, her heart pounding a frantic rhythm against her ribs. She was so cold she thought her blood must be slowing to ice. Finally she was dragged forward, 2 hulking betas gripping her arms, their claws pressing just enough to hurt. The throne room was immense, terrifying. It was lit by obsidian sconces that cast long, sharp shadows, and the air smelled of old stone, power, and a strange, metallic cold. Dozens of high-ranking wolves, alphas and powerful betas in expensive furs, watched her entrance with open contempt and curiosity. And there he was, King Kian Valerius, the Obsidian King. He sat upon a throne of black, veined marble, looking carved from the same cold rock. He was broad-shouldered, severe, with hair the color of polished mahogany and eyes the color of a winter storm, pale gray, almost translucent. His face was perfectly unreadable, a mask of aristocratic indifference. He wore a heavy dark fur cloak clasped by a single obsidian stone, and radiating from him was a silence so profound it felt like a pressure against Seraphina's eardrums. The silence was the terrifying part. It spoke of absolute control, absolute detachment. "State your petition, Winterpaw servant," his voice commanded, deep and resonant, yet utterly devoid of warmth. Seraphina opened her mouth, her rehearsed words about debt, loyalty, and mercy dying in her throat. She looked up at him, just for a second, just enough to meet those pale, frozen eyes. That was the mistake. The world stopped. For the briefest instant she saw not coldness, but a flicker of raw, white-hot shock. His chest, which had been perfectly still, hitched. Then the silence shattered. It wasn't a growl. It was a sound of elemental, desperate power. King Kian convulsed. His perfect mask fractured, his pale eyes widening in a terrifying, primal recognition. His powerful hands shot up, gripping the obsidian armrests so hard the ancient stone cracked. The Alpha Wolf, believed dead, had not just woken, it exploded to life within him, roaring through his physical frame. A presence slammed into Seraphina, so violent and overwhelming that it dropped every wolf in the room to their knees. It was a scent of winter storms, iron, and ancient, untamed wilderness. It was a wave of pure, absolute alpha hunger. Kian, unable to control the sudden, 3-decade surge of animalistic desire, clawed at his own chest, his human face contorted by the feral wolf trying to surface. His voice, no longer monotone but raw with agony and absolute possessiveness, echoed through the vast hall, shaking the very foundations of the citadel. "Mine?" The single word was a declaration, a claim, a desperate shriek of finding salvation and damning himself all at once. The king then fell forward, clutching his throat, his massive body hitting the cold marble floor with a sickening thud, utterly overwhelmed. The room erupted into panicked chaos. Seraphina stood frozen, still held by the betas, who themselves were shaking uncontrollably, trapped between their fear of the king and the sheer magnetic force of his sudden presence. Seraphina's own body was flooded with a terrifying mix of submission and strange, magnetic longing. Her unshifted body was useless, but her soul was screaming in immediate, dizzying response. Astra, Kian's trusted beta and captain of the guard, rushed forward, his face etched with disbelief. He barked orders, his voice barely steady. "Secure the king. Detain the girl. No one speaks of this. No one." As Kian was hauled away, his eyes, pale, glazed, and burning with a terrifying gold now, found Seraphina's one last time. In that gaze she saw not just possessiveness but a deep, anguished fear. His wolf was alive, but it was feral and desperate. She was dragged, trembling, from the throne room, no longer a forgotten servant, but the cause of a seismic shift that threatened to tear the Obsidian Citadel, and its king, apart. Chapter 3. Seraphina was placed in a chamber that felt both luxurious and suffocating. The walls were thick stone, the door reinforced steel. But the bed was piled with thick furs and a fire roared in the hearth. It was a golden cage. Hours later, Astra entered, dismissing the guards with a sharp gesture. He was a powerfully built man with eyes the color of burnt amber, carrying the rigid authority of someone who cleans up royal messes. He found Seraphina huddled near the fire, still wearing her patched cloak. "You are surprisingly calm, servant," Astra stated, his tone carefully neutral. "I was begging for my brother's life, Captain," Seraphina replied, her voice shaky but steady. "I have nothing left to fear that is worse than what I already face." Astra frowned. "You have no idea what you face now. You have awakened him." "His wolf." "His soul," Astra corrected, his voice dropping to a harsh whisper. For 30 years since he was barely out of his teens, the king's wolf has been silent. The best healers in the territories declared it dormant, nearly dead. They said he had lost the ability to feel the mate bond, the one thing that gives our kind purpose. The kingdom was convinced he was cursed or worse, hollow. Astra ran a hand over his face, exhausted. He became the Obsidian King, just cold, unfeeling. The perfect, functioning tyrant. But he was dying, Seraphina. Slowly, internally. His heart, his spirit, was eroding. He walked to the window, staring out at the mountain mist. Then you walked in. A packless, unshifted Omega, the lowest status possible, and his wolf didn't just wake up, it exploded. It screamed mine like a man who'd been drowning for decades and finally found air. Seraphina wrapped her arms around herself. I didn't mean to. Intent doesn't matter to destiny, Seraphina. All that matters is the result. You are his mate. You are the queen who thawed the Obsidian King. This will either be a miracle or a massacre. Astra warned her about the political firestorm already brewing. The powerful Alpha Lords, particularly Lord Forlag, a scarred, ambitious man who had long coveted the throne, would see this as a moment of weakness, an insult. The strongest Alpha in the territories bonded to a literal nothing? It was a mockery of the bloodline. They will challenge the bond, Astra confirmed grimly. They will try to take you from him or force him to reject you. Both actions will kill the king. Seraphina felt a surge of protectiveness, surprising in its intensity. I just want my brother free. Astra paused. The king is still incapacitated from the shock. But I took the liberty of investigating your petition. Turan Vane. His debt is pardoned on the king's future decree. He is being moved to a royal infirmary for treatment, effective immediately. Tears streamed down Seraphina's face. Thank you. Thank you. Don't thank me. The king's first coherent thought was about you. His second was about your scent, your distress, your loyalty, your fear for another. That and the fact that you weren't marked. You will never let your brother go now. You are his. Before leaving, Astrid delivered one last chilling message. The king is fighting himself right now, Seraphina. He has 30 years of suppressed power and self-hatred to contend with. Do not leave this room. Do not speak of your past, and do not, under any circumstances, try to shift. As the door clicked shut, Seraphina slumped onto the bed. She touched the cool moonstone amulet. Why the secrecy? Why did everyone fear the past? She was the Alpha King's salvation and his doom. She closed her eyes, and through the newly ignited, confusing bond, she felt a profound, primal presence. The Kian's wolf, silent once more, but now watching her, possessive and volatile, even from a distance. The cold stone room felt less like a prison and more like a necessary cage for a newly trapped, dangerous animal. Chapter 4. King Kian returned to her chamber 12 hours later, not as a storm but as a blizzard, cold, controlled, and infinitely more terrifying. He was dressed impeccably, but the tension in his shoulders was palpable. His eyes, though still pale gray, held the unnerving glint of suppressed gold. He dismissed the guards and stood before the fire, his hands clenched into white-knuckled fists. "You are safe," he stated, his voice now low and rough like grinding granite. "Your brother is stable and receiving treatment. The debt is cancelled. You are under my protection." Seraphina stood, wrapping the fur blanket tighter around her. "Thank you, Your Majesty. Now, if the bond can be severed, I would simply like to live quietly with my brother." Kian turned slowly, the controlled facade cracking to show the pain beneath. "Severed? You think I wouldn't have severed it if I could? My wolf has been dead for decades. You didn't just wake it, you ignited it. To sever the bond now would rip my soul in two. It would kill me slowly and agonizingly." He stalked toward her, the raw power of the Alpha radiating off him. Seraphina's unshifted body instinctively wanted to drop in submission, but her spirit stood firm. "Then tell me the truth, Kian," she pleaded, using his name, a shocking familiarity that made his eyes flare gold. "Tell me why you fear this bond so much. Why did you suppress your wolf in the first place? Why the cold prison?" Kian stopped, 2 feet away, caging her with his presence. He ran a trembling hand through his hair. His eyes locked onto hers, revealing the devastating truth she'd only heard in whispers. I suppressed it because I am dangerous," he admitted, the words choked with old grief. "The Alpha Wolf is a being of absolute instinct and power. When I was young, freshly crowned, I found my first mate. She was a gentle soul. We fought. I lost control, for only a second. I was too strong, too young, too arrogant." His gaze dropped to his hands, which were flexing and unflexing as if preparing to crush something. "I killed her. I didn't mean to. But my power, untamed, was too much. The guilt, the rage, it nearly drove me mad. I took the only action I could. I drove my own wolf deep inside, locked it down, and became the rigid king you see. Better a cold shell than a murderer." Seraphina gasped, the weight of his 30 years of self-imprisonment crashing down on her. This wasn't just a king who was cold. This was a man who had chosen to die inside to protect the world from himself. "You are still protecting yourself," she whispered, reaching out a hesitant hand. "But you are protecting me too. That's why you haven't claimed me. You're terrified you'll lose control again." He flinched, pulling back instantly as if burned. "You are perceptive, little Omega. My wolf wants to claim you here now, to sink its teeth into your throat and mark you permanently. But the man remembers the blood on his hands. If you are my mate, I won't risk harming you for the sake of my control." He turned away sharply, walking back to the fire. "Understand this, Seraphina. My need for you is absolute. You are the air my wolf breathes. But my fear is greater. Until I am certain I can control the beast you awoke, you will remain here, guarded and untouched." It is a terrifying necessity for both of us. Seraphina felt the mate bond ache, a terrible reciprocal pain of desire and restraint. She realized her unshifted status was not the shame, but the protection. It kept him from feeling the full, undeniable pull that might push him over the edge. As he prepared to leave, a fierce emotion Seraphina hadn't expected welled up in her: respect. He was the most powerful being she had ever encountered, yet he was bowing to his own morality. "I won't run," Seraphina told him firmly. "I won't run from you and I won't run from the pack. But you must trust me. I will fight for Taran and I will fight for myself. I'm not weak." Kian looked at her, his expression a mixture of awe and profound exhaustion. "You are the bravest fool I've ever met, Seraphina Vane. Now rest. Tomorrow we face the council. And they will try to take you from me." Chapter 5. The following morning, Seraphina walked into the Grand Council Hall, now known throughout the Citadel as the Omega Queen. She was dressed in a gown provided by Astra, deep charcoal silk that emphasized the pallor of her skin and the desperate strength in her silver eyes. Kian stood at her side, presenting a united front. His presence was a heavy, thrumming wall of power, warning every alpha in the room that he would tolerate no disrespect. Lord Forlag, the most powerful and ambitious of the dissenting alphas, stepped forward. He was scarred, with cold, calculating gray eyes and a shifting wolf that was already aggressive. "Your Majesty," Forlag addressed Kian, his voice laced with false deference. "We respect the authority of the mate bond, but not when it is claimed by one who is unworthy. An unshifted servant cannot sit on the obsidian throne. I invoke the ancient right of voice challenge." Murmurs rippled through the council. The voice challenge was a relic rarely used, reserved for challenging the mates of royal descent whose power was tied to spoken word or magic, not physical strength. "The girl has no voice, no power," Forlag continued, sneering at Seraphina. "She is a peasant. There is no challenge to be had." "We accept the challenge," Kian stated, his voice like cracking ice. Astra leaned in and whispered to Seraphina, "You simply have to make a declaration. State your name, your purpose. Your king's presence will negate his challenge." Seraphina took a deep breath, stepping forward slightly, ignoring the contemptuous stares. She felt small, but the memory of Taran's weakened state, the image of Kian's haunted eyes, gave her strength. "I am Seraphina Vane," she said, her voice clear, though trembling. "I am here because my king deemed my brother worthy of mercy. I am here because the moon goddess chose me. And I am here to tell you I will not yield my place." As she spoke the final sentence, Seraphina felt a strange pressure build in her chest, not the pain of her unshifted state, but an internal resonant humming. Suddenly Lord Forlag laughed, a sharp, dismissive sound. "You will not yield? You will not yield? Then tell me, little shame, will you yield to the judgment of the packs?" The taunt, the familiar slur was too much. Years of suppression, of being invisible, of watching her brother suffer because of her perceived weakness, boiled over. The moonstone amulet around her neck felt hot against her skin. "I will not." The two words rang out, amplified by an invisible, resonant force. It wasn't loud, but it was penetrating. The stone floor beneath Seraphina's feet vibrated. The Obsidian King's wolf presence, the wall of protective power he had erected, shimmered and dispersed. Every single wolf in the room, from the lowest beta to the highest alpha, was dropped instantly and violently to their knees, their heads bowed, their ears flattened. They were not submitting to Kian but to her voice. The large, ancient glass windows that lined the hall shattered outward, unable to contain the invisible wave of force. Seraphina stood alone, panting, surrounded by kneeling, terrified wolves and shards of glass. She looked at her hands, which were faintly glowing with a silver luminescence. King Kian, though still standing due to his immense will, was visibly shaken, his eyes blazing gold as he recognized the sheer, unadulterated power she had unleashed. Lord Forlag, still on his knees, began to scramble backward, his face a mixture of terror and dawning realization. The lunar singers? Impossible. They were hunted to extinction 3 centuries ago. It was the final piece of the puzzle. The mother's secret. The strange healing. The forced suppression. Seraphina was not just an Omega, she was the last descendant of the mythical lunar singers, wolves whose voices could command the elements, compel submission and heal fractured souls. This was why she woke the king. Kian looked at Seraphina, the fear now mixed with blinding awe. Seraphina Vane, he murmured, you are not an Omega. You are the lunar queen. The council, shattered and terrified, rose to their feet, no longer contemptuous but utterly reverent. The voice challenge had been won in a single devastating declaration. The true queen had been revealed. Chapter 6. The revelation of the lunar singer bloodline changed everything. Seraphina was no longer a political liability. She was a miracle, a weapon, and an ancient legend reborn. Lord Forlag, humiliated but strategically calculating, immediately invoked the trial by combat, the only recourse left to legally contest the bond, a duel between Kian and Forlag's strongest son. Seraphina spent the next few days in a whirlwind of learning and training. Minerva, an elderly Beta woman who had been a quiet servant in the citadel for decades, revealed herself to be a latent singer descendant, a keeper of the lore. The lunar singers were hunted, Minerva explained, her silver-touched eyes gleaming. Not just because of their power but because their voice is the natural enemy of the Shadow Blight, an ancient entity of chaos. They hid, diluted their blood, and became the forgotten Omegas and Betas. Until you. Seraphina started vocal training, learning to control the destructive force of her voice. She practiced humming, channeling, and creating small waves of energy that purified the air. Her voice was literally a song of order, capable of resetting corrupted energy, the precise antidote to the Shadow Blight. Meanwhile, King Kian was preparing for the duel. His wolf, now fully active, was a constant, dangerous companion. The bond thrummed with mutual need, a deep, silent conversation that often left them both breathless. One evening, Seraphina found Kian in the Citadel armory, sharpening his ritualistic daggers. You're still fighting yourself, she observed, watching the tension in his powerful shoulders. He stopped, sighing. My wolf wants to protect you. It wants to pin you down and claim you to warn the world away. But the man knows he will hurt you if he loses control. You won't hurt me, Seraphina insisted, stepping closer. My voice, my magic, it's the song of order, Kian. It can heal fractured souls. It can stabilize yours. She reached out and placed her hand flat against his chest, right over his heart. She began to hum, a deep, resonant sound carefully controlled. Silver light flowed from her palm and seeped into his skin. Kian groaned, not in pain but in profound release. What is that? A song of comfort, Seraphina whispered. I'm not just stabilizing your wolf. I'm speaking to the broken man. I'm telling him he is forgiven and he is safe. Tears, the first Kian had shed in years, tracked through the dust on his cheek. I haven't felt that kind of peace since before the tragedy. Their moment of intimacy was shattered when Astra burst in, his face grim. Your Majesty. Lord Forlag's faction invoked the old ceremony. They insisted on a blood oath before the duel. Kian scowled. Rituals. They're grasping at legitimacy. They are grasping at more than that, my king, Astra said, looking directly at Seraphina. One of the cups was switched. The king has been silently poisoned. It is silent toxin, a rare, odorless compound. It will not kill him outright, but it will weaken his shifts, cloud his mind, and destroy his stamina. He is walking into the arena to be butchered. Seraphina's world swam. Forlag had gone for the ultimate dishonor, poison. Kian, already fighting years of trauma, would not be able to rely on his new, unstable wolf. He was walking into a duel where his own body would betray him. She grabbed Kian's arm. You can't fight him. Not with poison in your blood. Kian's eyes were already dulling, the fierce gold receding. I have to. If I back down, Forelag claims you by default. I will not let that murderer touch my mate. I will win or I will die claiming the attempt. Seraphina felt a desperate resolve. She was the lunar singer. Her voice was the song of order. If she could save his soul, maybe she could save his body. But the risk was unimaginable. Interfering in a duel was forbidden, punishable by death or eternal packless exile. You won't die alone, she vowed, staring into his fading eyes. I will be in the gallery. And if you fall, I will follow. The stage was set. The Obsidian King, poisoned and afraid of his own power, would fight a duel to the death for his lunar queen. Chapter 7. The arena was ancient, carved into the heart of the mountain, open to the night sky where the full moon cast a sharp, indifferent silver light. Thousands of wolves from every territory had gathered, drawn by the political tension and the legend of the awakened king and the revealed queen. Seraphina stood on the royal platform, flanked by Astra and Minerva. Her heart hammered against her ribs, but her grip on the moonstone amulet was steady. The combatants entered. Forelag's son, massive and arrogant, shifted immediately into a dark, powerful alpha wolf. Then King Kian entered. He stood for a moment, a pale, proud king, before shifting into his massive snow-white wolf form. But Seraphina could see the subtle difference. His movements were sluggish, his fur lacked its usual luminous sheen, and the fierce gold of his eyes was muted. The poison was working. The duel began. Forelag's son fought dirty, aiming for exhaustion. Kian fought defensively, conserving his waning strength. For 10 agonizing minutes, they clashed, but Kian's natural healing was suppressed by the silent toxin. Then Kian faltered. He stumbled, giving Forelag's son the opening he needed. The dark wolf lunged, sinking his teeth into Kian's flank. Kian roared in pain and fury, but the toxin had robbed him of the strength to countershift. He collapsed, struggling to breathe, his white fur stained with blood and black shadow where the toxin was spreading. The crowd screamed, calling for the end of the duel. Forelag shouted in triumph. He falls. The Omega is mine. Seraphina didn't hesitate. She threw off the royal cloak and leaped from the platform, landing hard on the sand of the arena floor. Astra shouted a warning, but she ignored him. She ran to Kian, shifting her consciousness. She didn't shift her body, but she opened her throat and sang. It was a sound unlike any music. A low, resonant, guttural vibration that seemed to come from the core of the earth and the light of the moon. It was the song of healing, raw and ancient. Invisible silver light erupted from her mouth and fingertips, washing over Kian's collapsed form. The music was a living force, attacking the molecular structure of the toxin. The dark, spreading veins on Kian's white fur began to recede, shrinking back, burning away under the lunar power. Kian's massive wolf body bucked as the poison was forced out. Then, with a roar that was no longer feral but purely triumphant, he surged to his feet, his eyes blazing pure, glorious gold. The silent toxin was purged. He caught Forelag's son mid-lunge and ended the duel with one decisive, powerful snap to the neck. Silence fell, broken only by the sound of Kian's labored breathing. He stood over the vanquished challenger, the undisputed victor. But Seraphina was not done. She walked up to Kian, who immediately began to shift back to human form, exhaustion and absolute victory etched on his face. You said you wouldn't mark me without permission, she stated, her voice hoarse from the song but firm. Seraphina, I almost died. I can barely dash. I know, she cut him off. But you almost died because you weren't claimed. You fought alone. You need this, Kian. We need this. She reached up, cupping his jaw. I am not afraid of your power. I am afraid of you fighting your destiny. Seraphina shifted her consciousness again. She did not sing, she claimed. She sank her teeth into his neck, marking him, not as a queen but as a mate securing her love. The moment her teeth pierced his skin, power exploded. The silver light from her touch and the gold light from his eyes merged into a pillar of blinding lunar fire that shot into the sky. It was the absolute, uncontested completion of the bond. Kian groaned, his massive frame trembling before instantly returning the mark, his teeth sinking into the junction of her shoulder and neck. The pain was exquisite, quickly followed by a rush of warmth, safety, and an overwhelming sense of belonging. The two souls were finally perfectly one. They stood, marked and mated, uncaring of the thousands of witnesses. Lord Forlag, having watched his son die and his claim shatter, dropped to one knee. Long live the king! Long live the queen! The crowd erupted in a simultaneous roar of approval and awe. The Omega was gone. The Lunar Queen had arrived. Chapter 8. The peace lasted less than a week. The day after the claiming, Seraphina felt a chilling, invasive sensation through the mate bond, a terrible, corrupting cold that Kian could feel, but that Seraphina recognized. "It's not sadness," she whispered to Kian, who was holding her close in their chambers. "It's absence. The opposite of my song." The reports began to trickle in. Entire eastern villages had gone silent. Scouts returned, their minds fractured, speaking of shadows that moved and consumed. Minerva the Keeper arrived, her face grim. The Blight. The Shadow Blight. The void entity that hunted the lunar singers 3 centuries ago. Your full awakening, the strength of your claim, it woke its ancient enemy. The Shadow Blight was an entity of pure chaos, corrupting life into unlife and light into shadow. Its ultimate target was Seraphina, the last lunar singer, whose life song was the key to its final destruction. King Kian, now fully healed and stable due to the bond, was focused and lethal. He organized the defense of the citadel, marshalling every available alpha and beta. He fought with a balanced power Seraphina had never seen, ferocious in his wolf form, yet controlled and strategic in his human form. The lunar song had saved his life, but the bond had healed his soul. Seraphina worked tirelessly with Minerva, studying ancient tomes. Her brother, Taran, now recovering in the royal infirmary, had the faint silver tinge of a latent singer and used his quiet intellect to help her research. The Blight was defeated once before, Minerva read from a crumbling scroll. Sealed away by a chorus of 13 lunar singers who sacrificed their physical forms to create a prison of eternal song. "I won't let anyone sacrifice themselves," Seraphina stated, her jaw set. Taran, looking up from his text, offered the crucial insight. "They didn't have a king to amplify them, Sarah. They died to generate enough power. But you have Kian. The text says the lunar singer's power is magnified exponentially by the presence of a truly bonded alpha." Seraphina's eyes widened. "We don't need 13 deaths. We need 13 singers channeling together, using the mate bond as the final amplifier. We won't create a prison. We'll destroy the Blight entirely." She had to find them. The other descendants. The hidden ones who had been too afraid to come forward. She put out an emergency, silent call through the bond to Kian, instructing him to use his forces to find anyone with the silver-touched eyes Minerva described. Kian responded instantly, sending his most trusted betas into the deep territories. They returned with small, fearful families, 47 lunar singer descendants in total, all with diluted gifts, but all linked to Seraphina's core power. On the third night, the first waves of the Blight struck the citadel's outer defenses. The Blight was terrifying. Wolves transformed into shadow beasts, their eyes empty voids, their howls sounds of static and chaos. Seraphina stood on the wall, shifted into her own silver-white wolf form, a being of pure, luminous moonlight. She howled, and the 47 descendants responded. The pure song of order momentarily pushed back the corrupted waves. But in the center of the dark tide, an immense, wolf-shaped creature of pure shadow formed, the Void King. Silver Wolf, its voice boomed, a grating sound of grinding stone and dust. You should have remained silent. Now I will consume your light and your mate's sanity. Seraphina shifted back, catching her breath. The blight is stronger than the ancient text described, she told Kian. It knows my fear. It knows our strategy. We have hours, not days. The plan was set. The army would fight a holding action on the walls. Seraphina would take the chorus of 13, the 12 strongest descendants plus herself, to the Citadel's heart to perform the final world-saving ritual. I won't let you do this, Kian growled, his hands on her shoulders. You have to, she replied, touching his newly marked neck. Your job is to hold the line, Kian. Mine is to save the world you've given me. Chapter 9. Dawn broke on the fourth day and the shadow blight broke through the fractured defenses. Corrupted shadow wolves poured into the citadel courtyard. King Kian Valerius, in his magnificent white wolf form, met the charge head-on, fighting with a ferocity born of love and ultimate fear. He was a beacon of light and control, his movements flawless. Seraphina could feel his determination, his power, his silent prayer through the bond. In the center of the courtyard, surrounded by a hastily formed circle of the remaining singer descendants and the royal guards, Seraphina and the chorus of 13 began their final ritual. They shifted to wolf form, 12 partial silver wolves surrounding the pure silver lunar queen. Seraphina felt the power of every singer, every wolf, every desperate heart of the kingdom, flowing into her core. She pulled on the mate bond, using Kian's raw alpha strength on the battlefield to amplify her own. This is not death. This is song. This is unity. The Void King, having decimated the Alpha front, stalked towards the ritual circle, its 1,000 eyes focused on Seraphina. Silence! The Void King screamed, lashing out with tendrils of shadow. Seraphina ignored the assault. She focused only on Kian's heartbeat, the steady rhythm of his strength against the chaos. She opened her mouth and howled. It was the most powerful sound she had ever produced, a composite melody of 13 distinct silver voices, channeled through the single loving core of the Alpha King. Silver light exploded upward in a pillar that rivaled the sun. The light was a physical force, a tidal wave of order. It struck the shadow blight and the Void King screamed. Its massive shadow form began to unravel, its 1,000 eyes melting away. Impossible. I am eternal. I am chaos. You are nothing. Seraphina's amplified voice declared, echoing across the battlefield. You are the absence of light, and we are the moon's children, strengthened by love. Be gone. The final pulse of the cleansing song hit the Void King, and the ancient entity of chaos dissolved entirely into a cloud of harmless, inert dust. The corrupted shadow wolves stopped, their eyes clearing. The cold, chaotic energy vanished. The battle was over. The shadows were defeated. Seraphina collapsed, reverting to human form, caught instantly by the other singers. She was exhausted but smiling. Kian, having shifted back as well, raced toward her. He gathered her into his arms, his heart hammering against hers. You saved us, he choked out, burying his face in her hair. You saved the world, Seraphina. My queen. We did it, she corrected, looking over his shoulder at the assembled weary but victorious wolves. The king who led with love, and the queen who saved the realm with her voice. Later, in their private chamber, Kian held her close, tracing the mark on her neck. I fought a murderer within myself for 30 years, he confessed. I chose a prison of coldness. You walked in, a woman with nothing, and gave me everything, my wolf, my purpose, and my sanity. And you gave me everything I needed to become who I truly am, Seraphina replied, touching his mark. The courage to use my voice, the family I lost, and the safety to heal my brother. He kissed her, and their shared future, warm and luminous, stretched out before them. The Obsidian King's wolf was no longer a terrifying beast of suppressed rage, but a steady, powerful mate. The unshifted servant was now the legendary Lunar Queen. Together, King Kian and Queen Seraphina Valerius would rule the northern territories, their bond a visible, radiant testament to the fact that true power wasn't found in cruelty or status, but in courage, love, and the defiant song of a single, powerful voice. You witnessed Seraphina walk through absolute fire. You felt King Kian's 3 decades of silent torment. They found their strength in unity, fighting a battle that nearly destroyed them just to save their home. We poured every word, every painful choice, and every moment of their 9,000-word journey into this screen for you. Don't leave them standing alone now. The Void King may be defeated, but the shadows are always stirring. Their pack is only as strong as its loyalty. If this story moved you, if you felt that bond, then prove you belong here. Tap the subscribe button. It costs you nothing, but it's the only way to ensure the Lunar Queen's light, and the next chapter of their story, never fades into the silence.